when they are in some kind of a crisis, like either they are about to be admitted to a hospital or they are in legal situation. So I started looking at it and I realized that Islam emphasizes so much on mental wellness and physical wellness. And if we look at the basic tenets of Islam, mental clarity, mental competency is very integral. So I started thinking, and when I start looking at the history of psychiatry in even in Western societies, I realize the origin of psychiatry, psychology started. And I wanted to share that with you. And then we can talk about how this wellness, this resilience, coping with everyday stress is so important. Because I think if we approach talk about anything else, we are talking about the tip of the iceberg. Until and take care of our health, the outcome would not be good. So with that, I would like to introduce to you the mental health and why is it important. So if we really, when I go and look into our historical, religious, cultural background, I realize that the first book on mental health is our holy book. Because if you see, the verses constantly talk about hope, positivity, positive psychology, and like words like la taknatu, la tahinu, la tahzinu, that don't lose hope, don't become sad, don't become hopeless, don't become tired. And we see that in moments of crisis when prophets, or especially Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, would struggle with any crisis, that these comforting words would be sent to him in the Quranic verses. So another thing I realized that you have to have mental competency to be a practicing Muslim, right? Because when we think we are Muslim, we feel we are Muslim, when we say we are Muslim, and then we act as a Muslim, that's all the senses have to be together. And also in our religion, anything that kind of affects your mental clarity is prohibited, be it drugs or substances. So Arabic word khimr, anything that's addictive, anything that takes you away from this clarity is prohibited. Even intensity of emotions is prohibited, like anger or any euphoria, like, highs that can affect your mental clarity. Anger is very discouraged. So given that, I realized that we have the basics of mental health in our religion, in our holy book. So these are some of the words. Indeed, mankind was created anxious. So it clearly accepts that human emotions are natural, right? And then once they tell the Prophet ﷺ that perhaps you would kill yourself through grief over them, O Muhammad ﷺ, if they do not believe in this message and out of sorrow. So they are worried that the struggle of spreading Islam and the stress that the Prophet would feel by when he was conveying this message to convert people. So this is very kind of the construct of what we are using in therapy, validating emotions like anxiety, depression, identifying the stresses, and then the coping skills are also given. Unquestionably, by the remembrance of Allah, hearts are assured. So on one hand, they are identifying that yes, mental health concerns can happen. Mental health crisis can happen. You can get to a point of sadness and grief that you might think of killing yourself. Or even if you don't think of killing yourself, your sadness, your depression can get to a point that it might kill you. How we know that stress works in two ways, right? Stress affects your mental capacity, but stress can have a very bad impact on your physical health as well. So we know people who cannot cope with stress or live under constant stress and grief, they will go on to develop high blood pressure, high cholesterol, heart issues. So it impacts all parts of your brains. So part of your body and health. So clearly it addresses profit that don't kill yourself over this grief, but then there is antidote or the treatment is given that unquestionably by the remembrance of Allah, hearts are assured. That when you pray, when you meditate, when you say your salah, when you do any kind act of charity or kind act of taking care of someone, loving someone, everything is taking away this anxiety, this sadness, and gives you that good mood hormones come in your body. You become happy and relaxed. So this would be better if I show you this. Then if we go to the Sharia law, right, the tenets of Sharia, what we see, what is amazing, that when there is a command to preserve your deen, preserve your nafs, at the same point there is to preserve your akal. So mental competence is very important. It is almost like your religious duty to protect your mental wellness. Like if you look at that, where they're talking about nasl, mal, deen, nafs, akal is right at the same level. So it is so important for us to fight from the stigma of mental illnesses and understand that this is our religious duty to keep our intact our mental health, to preserve our mental health. So we use these two terms when we talk about the literature. Islamic culture is one word, right? It's primarily used in the academia to describe the cultural practices common to historically Islamic people, which is predominantly Arab. So one thing is Islamic culture, we date it back to that pre-Islamic area, the Arabic culture. Now we start practicing it as Islamic. Identified roles, but they were treated equally. Unless you are well mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, you will not have healthy behaviors, you will not have healthy relationship, you will not excel in education or in the society. And healthy individual, when gets marries another healthy individual, that healthy unit creates a healthy family. That healthy family creates a healthy community, and that healthy community then creates a healthy society. So it all starts with wellness. But when this wellness, so first thing is taking care of yourself, mental, physical, emotionally. But this wellness, when it is done to someone else, like I'm well, now I have to check the wellness of the other person, that becomes welfare. How? When we pray namaz, we are praying it for our wellness. But when we are praying it together with others, we are also concerned about wellness of the others, that become an act of welfare. Same way we do fasting, it's for our wellness. But when we open the fast with other people, we share our meals with other people, that becomes welfare. But then the biggest concept that Islam gives us, that bring this wellness, this welfare back to the community. So everything we do starts with an individual, but it ripples back to the community. That's why it's encouraged that everything, namaz, salah, fasting, zakat, everything should be brought back to the community. So again, it so nicely flows. Wellness flows into welfare, and welfare flows into developing the community. Then when we go to psychology, what we see is the books that we are using now, DSM-5, basically the concepts were already given by pioneers like Al-Razi, Avicenna. They established first mental hospitals. They did what we now call therapy. And we know that these hospitals were not built like outside the city. They would be built in the center of the city, and anybody not mentally competent or majnoon became the responsibility of the society. So they would not only treat them, take care of them in a holy manner, like body, mind together, they would take it in account. But once they were doing better, they would also help them integrate back into the society. So these models that we still don't see in Western society, we are still lacking these concepts of these hospitals in Western societies, because we don't see that rehabilitation part, which is so important. That first of all, identifying that somebody who's struggling with mental illnesses need a lot of emotional support, financial support, but then treating them uh, and then making sure you help rehabilitate them back in the society. So in Abu Zaid al-Balkhi, ninth century genius, he wrote a book, Masale al-Abdan. So this was for bodies and soul. So my Arabic is not that good. I can try again. Masale al-Abdan wa al-Nafs. So body and soul. This is the most beautiful concept that we are still struggling to get to, is the wellness, that mind and body are not duality. They are same thing. If your mind is affected, your body will be affected. If your body is affected, your mind will be affected. Centuries ahead of his time in realizing the importance of both mental as well as physical health for human well-being. And then diagnosis of psychology. He wrote extensively about stress, depression, fear, anxiety, phobias, OCD, and not only talked about it, talked about their therapies, treatment, what we are using now, centuries after. Clear, like DSM-5 diagnosis and their treatment. So these are all the Arabic names. Then Avicenna describes several specific neurological conditions like epilepsy, stroke, meningitis. So a lot of diseases that we now see, dementia, head injuries, traumas, everything was talked about in this literature. What is amazing. It's the book of Canon of Medicine. So that's the book that Avicenna wrote, Canon of Medicine, that talks about what we are now saying is DSM-5. This is what amazes me, the techniques that we are using now for therapy, that change of lifestyle. You would hear this so much in Western medicine right now, that there's a whole specialization right now around this lifestyle medicine, that how your behaviors, when you change your behaviors, you can lose weight, you can eat healthy, you can live healthy, how exercise. So all this we already had in our culture, literature, and history. Medications, they had medications. Now, what we see in America, that Muslims make about 1% of the population. But what we also see that they are very socioeconomically disadvantaged country. So initially, immigrants to America were allowed in America were professionals. But now we see with all these wars that there are a lot of people, refugees settled. people who are seeking political asylum or had to run out from their countries, right? So we also but see that that diversity of faith is there, but we also see that Muslims have become one of the biggest philanthropist community. And where is that practice coming from? Again, from our religious values. Now, let's talk about mental illness. We know that in our culture, which is not religion, which is not Islam, again, I talked about Islam, Islamic culture and culture of Islam is two different things. So culture of Islam talks about mental competence, talks about mental wellness, but Islamic culture that we came from all those societies where Islam came, the culture of those areas got mixed with Islamic practices, right? So now what we see is that mental illnesses in a lot of these Muslim cultures are considered like spiritual weakness. That does it mean that our faith is weak, that we are not believing in God? If we seek mental treatment, then we are saying that prayers are not enough, which is not the model that Islam gave. So people may depend on God for healing or regard receiving psychiatric services as lack of faith. They may interpret their symptoms as curse or a punishment from God, that I'm being punished for my sins. When engaging in conversation and counsel, a faith leader may usefully affirm that God has given us the, I don't know how I'm doing on time. So I will go fast. God has given us the ability to develop medicines that are helpful in keeping us well. Okay. So also what we see in a lot of cultures, we think that it is evil eye that is affecting our mental health or jinn possession that's affecting us. And we believe that we don't see the disease model. We don't use the disease model of mental illnesses. But we also see that when, even in America, that when people are depressed or affected by mental illnesses, they first go to somebody in the family, but they would rather go to a religious leader than to a doctor. So they first feel that somehow the mental illnesses are connected to their faith, to their belief, to their spiritual weakness. So they go to the religious leader first before they get to a doctor. So they may go to a primary care doctor if the physical symptoms become bad, but we as a mental health provider only see them in crisis. So I think it is very important that we bring the faith leaders into this conversation, that mental health providers work together with imams and faith leaders to create this wellness resiliency model in every community. So basically, this is the model that I have created and it's working very successfully in America. That as a psychiatrist, I do diagnosis, I prescribe medications, and then we send them to therapists, but we also send them to an imam to continue praying, continuing to use spiritual coping mechanisms, because we know, again, we started with the conversation with that zikr, the prayer is also as important as healing for the community. So this is where we did a training. We do regular trainings for imams to introduce them to mental health. This is first aid mental health training that our community leaders take, imams take, because right now imams are very inundated. People go to them for all kind of their mental health struggles, from depression, anxiety, PTSD, domestic violence, substance use, everything. They are going to the imams, and imams are not trained. So that's what we are doing, is that they should have the enough awareness to identify what is going on and then can refer to a doctor or a psychiatrist. So this is a brief introduction. I can answer questions. Yeah.
Have enough time. If you want to deliver the others material, it's okay.
Yeah, I would like to answer questions
Or
and
directly.
then
Okay.
blur my material out. Take
Okay.
that with
Yeah, I know.
very brief because I want to answer questions.
Okay. Okay, Dr. Abasi, thank you very much for this informative material as and also interesting material about the mental health. Uh, I think interesting topic is about the woman health. What do you think? Because you know that a woman have a multiple role in the household. For example, for the first, being mothers and also a wife, and the second role is will be a work career woman. How to develop or how to manage the mental health is the woman's like that. Okay, thank you.
Very important. Thank you for that question. So, I teach this woman mental health and I talked about gender equality. So, let me start there. That in Islam, when we talk about that God is Rahman, Rahim, right? We say God is Rahman. So, what is the root of Rahim? Rahim literally means, also means uterus, right? Woman's uterus, right? So, what we see is if God is the creator, who was given the power to procreate was given to the woman. And for woman to perform this important duty of procreation, producing child, hormones, multiple hormones were given to her. She was made soft, she was made emotional, because until unless she was sensitive and emotional, how would she be able to carry a baby for 9 months and take care of that baby, right? So a lot of hormones were given to the woman. But those hormones is what make women more susceptible to depression, anxiety, and struggles. So it is in Islam very clearly stated that celebrate women, respect women, nurture women. And then men were given strength. Men were given physical strength. Men was given because men was supposed to protect this woman while she is doing the role that she's assigned, that is procreation, motherhood, taking care of the baby, taking care of the family. The men was supposed to be supporting that role, and that's why was given physical strength. So both had very specific roles, but it is also clearly said that men or women, whoever is righteous will go to the heaven, right? So again, same rules of dressing, same rules of keeping, inhibitions, same rules of ibadah, same rules of respecting each other, same rules apply to both. So, but what we see is, and especially what we saw in COVID 19, that women got deeply impacted because what we realized that most of the labor of the world is the unpaid labor of the woman. So in COVID 19, we saw that not only they were taking care of the kids, they were teaching kids, they were taking care of the families, they were providing financially. And most of this labor that women do is unpaid, unacknowledged, uncelebrated. So that puts women into, makes women very vulnerable to depression, anxiety, trauma, and we see that domestic violence rates have gone traumatize them, not support them, then of course the outcomes are going to be really bad.
Okay.
And not only it impacts her, but the baby she's carrying will be impacted. Because what happens when the mother, while she's pregnant, is stressed out, depressed, she releases a lot of stress hormones that impact the brain of the fetus, impacts the birth of the baby, can impact the development of the baby. So it doesn't end with that woman, it continues in your next generation. So we have to really put a lot of importance in women's mental health.
Okay, thank you, doctor. I think it's a good explanation about the role as woman in household. Okay, now we turn to the next question in the chat box in Zoom. Okay, from Harun Al Rasid. I have heard that the source of disease is the mind. You know, so if we want to healthy mentally and physically, then we always think positively, or what is known in Islam is husnudon. Okay, what do you think about it? Okay, thank
In
you.
Islam is, sorry, last word was, in Islam,
Husnudon. Husnudon.
huzn, huzn, sadness, or
Husnudon.
goodness,
Husnudon, doctor.
like goodness.
Yes. Always
Okay,
feeling, always feeling have a five
positive.
positive vibes,
Yes,
something like that. Okay.
yes, yes. So I can tell you when we think, your thoughts are so powerful that if you start your day with the sad thought that I am, let's say, I'm a failure, I'm not able to do anything, what happens is your brain releases stress hormones, releases high cortisol, and that cortisol, that high stress levels, then affect your level of insulin in your body. And that impacts your whole digestive system, your heart, everything, all the systems get affected. So it's like one thought can release hormones. So I can give you the example. When you do an act of kindness, oxytocin is released, which creates happy mood, which relaxes your muscles, relaxes your mind, your body, and you feel happy and relaxed when we do an act of kindness, right? But even if you see someone else doing an act of kindness, same hormones get released. You still feel happy. Even if you read about an act of kindness, you feel happy. And that's why when we read Quran and we meditate, these relaxing hormones are released. And now we know the effectiveness of Surah Rahman in lot of chronic diseases, pain, that when people recite Surah Rahman, it releases the same hormones in your body and mind that relaxes you. Because another thing we know now that stress causes inflammation in your body. And that inflammation can cause joint pains, can cause you to have affect your stomach, can affect your heart. So that inflammatory process brings your immunity down. So at the same time, when you are relaxed, you are meditating, you are praying, you are exercising, that inflammation goes down, your immunity goes up, and you feel well. So that's why it is very important to understand the relationship.
Okay, so we need to always make our brain or and in our mind always have a positive vibes about anything or in around in our environment. Okay, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, doctor. Now we can turn in the next. Okay, next is a live question in our audience here. Okay. Boleh silakan. Berdiri aja di sini. Wait a minute, doctor.
Okay, thank you for the time. I want to know what is your opinion. As we know now, many countries don't allow women to get higher education. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that question. I can, so especially when the hadith says, go to even China to seek knowledge, and I don't have the verse in front of me, but it is mandatory for men and women both to seek education. And if we take the example of how Prophet treated the woman in his day, Bibi Khadija was a CEO, a boss, right? She was his boss. So when she got married to Prophet, Prophet didn't tell her to sit home and not go and do her job anymore, right? She continued to be the executive CEO of her company. We also see that Prophet always encouraged, sorry. So I think this is what I was talking about, that the culture of Islam is very clear that both men and women should seek education, and there is no stipulation that stop education when you get married, or stop education if you have kids, because we see um, uh, his wives, we see Bibi Aisha writing, like compiling hadiths, continuing her education. We see Bibi Khatija doing that. We see Bibi Fatma as a leader. We see Warqa as imam. So if the woman was really empowered and celebrated. So this is what I said, that there's culture of Islam that we should follow, and then there is Islamic culture, which is the culture of the countries where Islam came, and it in most cases predates Islamic practices, and we have to differentiate between the two. So unfortunately, the countries that are prohibiting education of women, they think they are practicing Islam, but Islam is very clearly encouraging. And Islam encourages for both men and women to reach their full potential, to live up to their full potential.
Okay, thank you, doctor. Now we are turned to the next question in the chat box. The cureness of passion is very important, but the egocentric of some profession do not allow the is like imam or ustans to do this part, to do his part to cure the passion. How do you give the suggestion about my narration? Okay, maybe you can take a look in your chat box in Zoom meeting. If you have, it's not clear for me for the question.
So I think I understand.
Okay, is it clear for you for the question?
Okay, I understand. So what they're saying is that some therapists, doctors, they feel that religion should not be part of treatment or don't refer to the imams, right? So I can give you an example right now because we have created this model. I think both professions have to respect each other and create a working relationship with very clear boundaries. Like I'm a practicing Muslim, but I'm not the religious authority, right? I can study Islam, I can give examples, but I'm not an authority. In the end, I defer to the Imam to help us solve religious or spiritual issues. Same way, Imams can get training of mental health, but they cannot become mental health providers, right? They can identify the elements and refer. to us. Okay, I can give you an example. So in a Ramadan, one of the young men who was not sleeping, was fasting and doing ibadah whole night, he had a mental breakdown, and he started seeing things and hearing things, and he felt he's having a spiritual experience. He started seeing Jannah and Jahannam, and he started seeing devils, he started seeing angels, to the point that he was breaking away from reality completely. He was not able to function, he wasn't sleeping. So they first took him to the imam to pray on him, right? To treat it as a spiritual illness, right? And the imam did the ruqyah on him, and imam prayed on him, but imam was also had gotten the training of the first aid mental health training, right? So he also identified that this could be possibly a mental breakdown, a psychotic episode, and he said, I will continue to pray, but I think you should also take this kid to Dr. Abbasi. So when I saw him, I evaluated him, I diagnosed him with schizophrenia. It was first psychotic breakdown, but at the same time, I told him that even if it is a spiritual experience, it seems you are breaking away from reality. So in order for you to stay sane and functional, we will put you on medications, but that doesn't mean that you have to stop praying. You can go and continue praying with the imam, but we will organize your sleep, your lifestyle, your meals so that you are able to function. Otherwise, you will not be able to even understand the spirituality of this experience. So that's how Imam and I work together. And that's the model. That's what I'm talking about, that we need to develop mutual respect and understand when we are dealing with a community whose basic identity is religious, and religious practices and spirituality are an integral part of our life, then we have to work, mental health providers, doctors have to work with the imams. Another example I can give you, with the COVID epidemic, the COVID vaccination, there were big concerns. People were not taking COVID vaccination in Muslim community. One thing, the concern was, what if there are pork products in it? The second concern was, can we take COVID vaccination during fasting? Because it was month of Ramadan that came. So we constituted a whole team of imams with medical doctors. We looked at the ingredients. We confirmed that there is no pork product. Then we also went into religious discussion, that is vaccination allowed while you are fasting? And then the whole team of imams said that that is allowed, injections are allowed, and vaccinations are allowed even while you are fasting. So then we took the message back to the community. Same way, when you are very sick, you could be on medicine for depression or bipolar medication that you should not be fasting on. So even as a Muslim provider, if I tell them that no, you are exempted, even you are exempted because of mental conditions, your mental illnesses are also exempted from you from fasting, because you cannot miss your medication. But it will not be that effective until unless an imam supports that. So that's where Imam and I work very closely together, and that's the model now we are purporting and proposing and practicing in America and in other societies.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. Nice explanation. Now we can turn to the other question. There is two question. One, okay, in chat box from Sri Nuring Wahyu. In Islam, it is highly recommended to be grateful. What do you think?
Gratitude is so important. So I looked at the seven effective habits of successful men in America, and gratitude is number one. So imagine our religion had already explained to us the concept of sabr and shukr, patience, perseverance, and thankfulness, right? Those are the very attributes that every successful man, even in Western society, is using that. So gratitude in itself is works in a healing manner, that you are always focused on what is working in your life. You are always thankful about things that are working well. You are not focused on negative, on what is not working, what is bothering you. This practice is so important in the materialistic society that we are living in, because we are always comparing ourselves with those who are higher ups, right? They have a bigger house, they have a bigger car, they have a better job, their kids are doing better than us. And that creates this kind of hopelessness in you, creates this discouragement in you, creates this sadness in you. And that's where this practice of gratitude is so important. And it is practiced every big successful man. That would be the first thing they would tell you. Both the practices of sabr and shukr, both are very integral to the success. And when you are feeling gratitude, again, the same hormone, oxytocin, is released in the body.
Okay, Doctor, I think it's the last question for this plenary session. The last question is from Basli Azhar. Okay, Basli Azhar. I think this is an interesting topic to discuss, Prof. Farha. With the existence of social media and the internet, anyone can be a victim of their own. The generation has changed, and the mindset also has changed. The question
Okay.
is, how can we educate our society or our next generation to have strong mental abilities like our forefathers? Okay.
So I think you're talking about addiction to social media, or how social media is also introducing us to negative practices, is causing us to be envious because everybody else look happy, everybody else looks successful. But it is what we see is social media addiction affects the attention, can affect your cognition. But even what we are now seeing, that excessive hours spent on social media can cause severe depression and anxiety. It changes your chemical hormones in the brain. Your structure in the brain is changed by constant exposure to these stimulus. There's something very strong in Islam, the practice of muraqabah or mindfulness that we tell about. And mindfulness literally means that how to shut your mind to these external stimuli, how to go inward and create the power of focus and concentration. So mindfulness is what every salah that we say. Salah is a practice of not only you're doing physical activity like yoga, but your mind has to be super focused on one point. You shut all the external stimuli. And when your brain is doing that, it is deleting all these toxins out of your body. It is rejuvenating. Your brain cells are regenerating, recreating. So this power of mindfulness is very important, that I would say is gonna create that focus, that ability to concentrate, to shut these external disturbing stimuli and develop that higher ability of mind to function.
Okay, thank you, Doctor, for the nice answer about the social media right now. Okay, now actually we have three keynote speakers in this plenary session, but both of them have the other activities. So Dr. Awisa is just one speakers in this plenary session. In this keynote speakers. Okay, and then now we can turn to the next agenda as a giving certificate to Dr. Farha, please. Okay, doctor, is your certificate. Please give a round of applause.
Can I take a picture of the certificate?
Okay, I think our organizing committee will send you a certificate to your email later after this. Okay, I will give you. Thank you, Dr. Farha. Thank you, Dr. Farha. You already our keynote speakers to this our international conference, and thank you so much disturbing your time in the midnight.
I hope my presentation was helpful.
Okay, absolutely. I think there's a lot of information during mental health. I think it's really, really nice material.
I want to announce my Muslim mental health conference that's happening in Michigan State University on March 10th and 11th, and it's going to be virtual, and we have 150 abstracts from 30 Muslim countries. So I would highly recommend for your participants to look that up and attend that conference. It's going to be virtual as well.
Okay, thank you for your invitation. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, we are now at the end for this conference in the plenary session. Thank you, Dr. Farah, again. Thank you very much for being our keynote speakers in this for today. Udah keluar ibunya. Doctor, can you hear my voice? Oh, sudah keluar. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank so much the speakers, and then hopefully the seminar will be beneficial for us and for everybody. And I apologize during this seminar. During this keynote speakers, I have some mistake. So please give applause before our end in this seminar. So okay, thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Ya, balik ke main room. Ya.
Recording in progress.